people have been kind of like, oh, like, is Girl Defined, are they like, I don't know, like people have been saying stuff like, oh, are they even like Christian anymore or whatever, because we're basically taking a look back and really discussing and talking about like, what do we really believe is truly biblical and what do we believe is not, and that we were maybe legalistic about, or that we were maybe, you know, like adding to scripture. And so we're still very much following Christ and wanting to honor him, but I think it's even more in a genuine way and in less of like a Pharisaical way. And so that's kind of the whole point. And my hope is that in our new book, Made to Be She, that it really is a gospel perspective of womanhood and not just our own ideas.
Yes.
And so
hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am Jen, this is Fundy Fridays, and here on my channel I talk about different aspects of Christian fundamentalism, American conservative politics, pop culture, and gay stuff. And today I'm giving you guys a long-awaited, highly requested update on what people are now calling Deconstruction Gate, i.e. whatever went down between Dave and Bethy and his deconstruction and the collabs they've done, and Bethy's seemingly contradictory statements because she's still promoting homophobia and transphobia on the Girl Defined channel, but yet this summer she said that she would openly welcome a gay child and their partner into her home. And then literally earlier last week, Bethy made like an AI generated trad wife dog whistle account on Instagram. And then she used a real picture of somebody's real grandparents without anyone's permission and used it as like the background of one of her posts. And that person messaged Bethy and was like, that's my grandparents, what's going on? And then she nuked the entire account. And that all happened like 3 days ago. Long story short, we have a lot to cover today. And of course, I'm going to give you a little like TLDR, catch you up on Girl Defined if you have never heard of them. Which, I say this all the time, if you've never heard of Girl Defined, I wish I was you. I'm in way too deep. This is number 8, so I guess why don't we begin? But before we dive in, you know, we gotta pay some bills around here, so here is a word from our sponsor, Helix Sleep. Hello everybody and welcome back to Mattress Defined, where I show you how you can get the most godly night of sleep with a Helix mattress. I've had my mattress for over 6 months and let me just tell you, it has kept me completely free of sin for that entire time. I mean, it was getting pretty bad for a while. I mean, one time I even inserted... This video is sponsored by Helix Sleep. Right now, their Black Friday sale is running for a limited time. Visit helixsleep.com/fundyfridays to get 25% off your mattress, plus 2 free pillows, and receive a free bedding bundle with your Luxe or Elite order. Guess what I really should be telling you is that I am genuinely obsessed with my Helix mattress. I love it so much, and honestly, it kind of makes me feel like a real adult. I mean, I just turned 31, I pay taxes, I own my house, but having this thick boy is really what cemented adulthood for me. Helix delivers your mattress right to your door with free shipping in the US. It comes rolled up in a box and it is easy to set up. You could even have your headship set it up. Or I guess you could be like one of those Proverbs 31 women who are girl bosses and can do everything. It's up to you. Helix mattresses are customized to fit your needs. In fact, all you need to have the best sleep ever is to take their short sleep quiz. Helix Sleep Quiz matches you to the perfect mattress based on your body type and sleep preferences like side sleepers, stomach sleepers, multiple sleepers. If you're usually cold or hot sleeper, they have every kind of option ever. Personally, I sleep on a Twilight Luxe. I'm a side sleeper. I have back problems, so I have a firm mattress. And I know I've mentioned this before, but this thing is thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. Helix mattresses include a 100-night sleep trial, a 10-year warranty, and they even offer financing options and flexible payment plans. I love my Helix mattress, and I especially love that they are affordable, customizable, and fiberglass free. Seriously, fiberglass in a mattress, that should be considered a mortal sin. So once again, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Helix Sleep, for sponsoring today's video. Right now, their Black Friday sale is running for a limited time. Visit helixsleep.com/fundyfridays to get 25% off your mattress, plus 2 free pillows, and receive a free bedding bundle with your Luxe or Elite order. So I'm gonna try and be nice to Girl Defined while also calling out the very harmful things that they do, because it's not like they're just making little videos that nobody watches. Like, they're huge influences on not just the evangelical online women's community, but they're a big deal just in general. You know how many articles have been written about Girl Defined? Like, especially as they are kind of the face of modern purity culture. And even though Bethy's, been in her sexy era, like, there's still a lot of purity culture that is being taught on the Girl Defined's channel, and just a lot of, like, really problematic stuff. And so I feel like that needs to be called out, just because it is dangerous. Like, little girls, young adult women, even creepy dudes I've seen watch their channel and complain about, how women are dressed, or, women being loose or something. And I just really want to make sure that there's, like, an opposing opinion out there, so that, let's say I save one little girl from going down a Girl Defined pipeline, that would probably be worth it to me.
Like, the Bible does have some specifics about men and about women and how we can love our families well and live out his design for us well. I mean, obviously something that we know in culture is we are trying to blur these lines and become as neutral. Like, there are no rules, there are no differences. Everyone just be whatever you want to be, feel whatever you want to feel. It's all about just kind of like doing what you want to do. But as Christian women, we have a different standard, a different source, a different foundation that we live by, and that's the word of God.
Girl Defined, they are from the San Antonio, Texas area. Kristen and Bethany were born to the Baird family, and I only bring that up because the mom and the dad are now trying to have everyone go by Marchand as a last name. Michael Marchand is Girl Defined's full brother, and he, I assume, was a Baird, and now he goes by Marchand. So, I mean, supposedly this last name change comes from one of their grandparents, their grandfather, not the Austrian mayor. And I guess he was adopted, and so they wanted to honor him by going by his old last name. But it is confusing because only some of the family has changed their last name. I think Heidi still goes by Baird online. They have a majority of daughters in the family, and most of them have gotten married and changed their last name anyway. So it's just kind of, it's an interesting way to go about things. So Kristen married a man named Zach. Her name is Kristen Clark now. She was born January 7th, 1987. I don't know as much about Zach as I do Dave. And this is all like, I don't actually know them. This is all delusionally parasocial. Zach, from the stories that Kristen told, is not somebody that I would want to interact with. He kind of sounds like a patriarchal jerk.
We had been out somewhere and there was this really creepy guy who was like giving me so many just like stare downs. And of course I hate that. I'm like, creepy guy, get away. Like, what are you doing? And I remember Zach was just furious about it. He's like, okay, that creepy guy, like he was just staring you down like so much. And like, he was so mad. And so he's in that moment of feeling like so mad about that guy and like wanting to punch him. We came home and we weren't married yet. And we were, just hanging out. And he's like, I just think floor length skirts would be the best option for you. And I was like, what? He's like, no, I'm serious. I just think if you wore floor length skirts, that would solve a lot of problems. And I was like, what? And so we had a brief moment, and I had a brief moment of shock where I thought he was really going to like keep pushing for this, but he didn't.
She has 3 children now, and she adopted 2 boys from Ukraine a couple of years ago. And one of the controversies that was surrounding this adoption is that it seemed like Zach, not only was he not going to try and learn Russian, but he actively didn't like when the boys spoke Russian, and he really just seemed like apathetic and kind of like mean about the whole situation. Like, I'm not going to learn it. They need to learn English.
A lot of you have asked, like, do they speak English? And no, they don't. They only spoke Russian.
They're better.
They're learning English, and we're learning some Russian. And so between the little bit of Russian that we know, the little bit of English that they know.
Russian?
Well, no, we've learned a lot of Russian.
I'm not learning Russian.
No, we're not like learning, like taking classes, but we've learned so much Russian. I mean, there's so many words we say.
True.
I'm like, I'm saying things in Russian.
You have to say it to get by with some words, but we're not actively
studying.
Russian, yeah.
I know, we're not that ambitious yet. Maybe someday.
Well, the kids need to learn.
Yeah, they need to learn English. Yeah, because they obviously live in America now, so to be able to talk to friends, and it would be cool though if they could keep up their Russian. I would love that, and them having each other, I think, helps because they talk to each other in Russian a lot.
How cruel is that? And how unloving to these boys that you are now responsible for their care and their well-being and enriching them and helping them connect to their culture, being sensitive to their traumas. All that just goes out the window when you're like, so I need to learn English. Like, you couldn't be bothered. Now, to be fair to Kristen only, not to Zach, she posted a video to, I think, her Instagram story where she's talking with the boys, and they have these super, super cute, thick accents, and they're kind of talking in their best way to speak English, and they're talking. It sounds like one of the little boys says, we weren't allowed to speak Russian. And I want to give the benefit of the doubt here to Kristen. Maybe he was kind of exaggerating or joking, or maybe he used the wrong word. It sounds like maybe they were not encouraged to speak Russian, which is also bad. And so I really hope the situation is not that. I hope that that's not what's going on.
They still speak some, but it's funny because when you guys first came here in their room at night, when they're like talking in their bunk beds, they were only speaking Russian, so I never knew what you were saying. And now you speak English to each other, and I know what you're saying.
When I'm allowed that because and the mom not know what we're saying.
I know.
Okay.
I couldn't know what you were saying.
Okay, today we will speak Russian at night.
Okay, tell them something in Russian.
Secret.
Oh, come on. Some people probably speak Russian who are watching.
No.
Здравствуйте. Привет. Меня зовут Кристин.
Now, I don't speak Russian myself. The only real exposure I have to that language is probably the drag queen Katya. And so I don't know what she's saying, but from context clues, it sounds like maybe she's saying, my name is Kristen. At least she was trying, and so that shows that she's trying. I don't know if she put her foot down with the situation with Zach, because it sounds like the boys are able to be bilingual.
Здравствуйте. Привет. Меня зовут Кристин.
We do have some updates that I would like to tell you guys all about, namely Kristen, who had been struggling with infertility and miscarriages for 12 years, had a baby. She was pregnant and gave birth and has a baby, and I'm happy for her. Kind of like in that same vein as Allie Beth, but I'm doing it ironically, right? Like, I'm going to congratulate you on your new baby, but I'm not going to condone your lifestyle, which is being a far-right conservative. Okay, and I think that's fair. But yeah, good for Kristen. I mean, if you've been watching this channel for a while, if you've kept up with any of that journey, you've probably seen this clip where a very pregnant Bethany is picking her nails and seemingly like ignoring her sister, who is bawling her eyes out about this infertility she's been going through and how she's having to wrestle with her faith, and she's literally calling out to God in this video. It's very vulnerable, very raw, and she's like, God, why would you give me a baby and take it away? And then why would you also give a baby to my sister? And Bethy's just ignoring her. And I understand maybe they don't have a touchy-feely, like, lovey relationship like that, but it was just like so awkward. Like, you couldn't cut that out. Like, at the very least, Bethy should know her way around video editing programs. She's been doing this for 10 years. Editing Jen here, and God has put this on my heart. It has been weighing heavily. I want to clear the air about this clip. Okay, so, for one, I have now watched it multiple times, and I think that Bethy is there for Kristen emotionally. She's very supportive and is like being really nice, and maybe she didn't want to get up and hug Kristen because like she's pregnant, and maybe that would have been uncomfortable for her to, you know, get up and go to the chair or whatever. Something that I didn't remember from watching this clip is that Bethy compares being single to having a miscarriage.
You and Zach were really open and excited about the idea of having children. You were not getting pregnant. Had miscarriages, which we'll link to some videos you've shared before.
Early on in the marriage.
I was not getting married. So in a way, we were both experiencing very similar feelings of like, wow, we're really hoping for something and it's not really happening. but we're kind of in the same season in very different ways because of that.
Right.
Maybe, that was just a bad day. Or maybe, Kristen just doesn't think about that with Bethy. She's like, oh, that's just what she does. I know she didn't mean anything by it. But just that kind of back and forth, the kind of bickering, the like sibling tension, like that has been documented so much. Everybody picks up on it.
Do you guys get the sense that these women hate each other? I know that's horrible to say, but when one of them is talking, the other one is looking at her like, are you done? Like they really, and I'm working with Katya, I know what that looks like.
Certainly they like each other enough to continue working together. I mean, they're siblings. They probably bicker and fight, but also have their really good moments. I don't know, but that's one of the things that Girl Defined is known for, is their relationship with each other. Among other things like oversharing.
I have really stinky feet.
That's true.
So bad that my husband...
She's always been that way.
Which, more power to Bethy, I guess, if she wants to share those things.
I would basically view it like, all right, Dave, it's your job to make me come alive, and I'm like coming like these dead, dry bones. And he's like, all right, how am I going to raise the dead tonight, And it was just so horrible.
For context, that clip was a part of Bethy's sexy era, as I like to call it. My favorite era, by the way. No, I think pro-gay Bethy is my favorite era, but I'm not even quite sure if that's happening, so I'm going to go with the other one.
It's probably the best idea I have ever had. It's probably the best idea anybody has ever had.
She was deconstructing the harmful things that she'd been taught in purity culture, although not all the way, because she's still very much into, one man, one woman, monogamous, godly marriage sex. And Bethy was just laying it all out, letting everybody know her business. And some people, including myself, were kind of speculating, like, how the hell does that make Dave feel?
So the exposure via Bethany talking about sex and herself and our relationship is very exposing in that sense, or at least it seems to be exposing to me. And that is an awesome opportunity for me to basically challenge myself where I'm weak, which is what other people think. How am I going to deal with that and handle that myself? Am I going to get my sense of adequacy from what other people think, even from what Bethany thinks? Or am I going to have that self-contained inside me where I can be around people, even people who think less of me, and still retain my form and my shape and move into the world with confidence, regardless of how other people might view me.
Who are Girl Defined? Girl Defined Ministries is the official name of their ministry. And when you talk about the history of Girl Defined, like, it's not just the ministry. It's not just the books, the podcasts, the YouTube channel. It's also merch and e-courses about courses. There's a sex course. There's a singles course. There's all kinds of courses that's going to come up. I know. Bethy's the queen of rebranding. And I don't even think Kristen was really involved in any of this. Bethy is I feel like she gets bored easily. And she likes being creative and she wants to be a girl boss. Also, like, the world, the internet, is not very friendly to conservative values. I wonder why. And so, poor Bethy.
Is called The Deconstruction of Christianity, what it is, why it's destructive, and how to respond. And that's really about this phenomenon we're seeing largely online of faith deconstruction, where maybe it's a musician or a famous Christian author who goes on social media and basically says, I had all these questions, nobody can answer my questions, or Christians are all hypocrites, or whatever it might be. And then they leave the faith, essentially. And so it's a book talking about that movement and really how the church can engage with it and respond to it.
Bethany was born September 13th, 1988. Does that mean she's a Virgo? Not going there. She married a man named David Beal. Online, Bethany has referred to herself as Bethy, although I have seen, like, her close friends or even acquaintances refer to her as Bethany. And then the thing with Dave's name is that I'm not sure if he actually goes by DAV with the thing across it. That started with Bethy. She would say this is how he spells his name. And it seemed like a fun, like, nickname you do in, like, high school, or like a username. I don't think he's ever actually gone by that, but because I have not spoken to either Bethany or Dave to get their preferred name and pronouns, so to speak, I'm gonna go with DAV with the thing, just because that's kind of colloquially how he's referred to online, but you might see it either way, just saying. The nicknames are rampant with these two. They, Girl Defined, had kind of been on the scene, the evangelical, fundy, online scene, since at least 2009, because I found on the Wayback Machine, shout out Wayback Machine, by the way, they need lots of support, they are being attacked. BairdSisters.com was first, like the first iteration of that site was from 2009, and it featured Bethy, Kristen, and their sister Alyssa, and they were a stable, as James talked about in his most recent episode, and now Girl Defined is a tag team. But originally there were 3 of them, and they wrote a book, which I have not been able to track down, although I have tried. They wrote a book called Models Wanted, Physical Features Not Required.
One of the reasons that we decided to write this book is because we strongly believe that women all across America are being influenced by the false messages of our society.
Yeah, there's a lot of videos on this Baird Sisters YouTube page, which, by the way, is still up, if you wanted to check that out, including some videos from their brother, Michael, and I am going to save him the embarrassment and not click on these videos, although I did click on this other guy's talking about women's modesty and the perfect wife, so...
The next question is, when you hear the words modest clothing, what comes to mind? Describe what a modest girl's outfit looks like. I think that modest clothing is clothing that covers up more conservatively than necessarily may even need to be. Just go the extra mile. Just to guard the eyes and the minds and the hearts of the guys around, especially if they're guys that are trying to really walk in that way and try to be pure. It really helps out. So what I think the misconception is that all modest clothing is going to be ugly and old-fashioned or whatever. A lot of jean skirts and whatnot like that. I think that the number one thing that needs to be understood, but just by girls and guys even alike, is that a girl can look fashionable and just be even on the cutting edge of fashion, and that they can do that modestly, just wearing shirts that maybe come up to the neck, maybe even turtlenecks, I don't know, stuff like that. And then just like shorts that are longer than just like short shorts. I can't stand short shorts. It's like they're wearing a diaper or something. It's ridiculous.
But anyway, they made this video series to promote this book that I can't find anything about. But it was just prototypical Girl Defined. Like, this was Girl Defined before it was a thing. And they have all the same exact talking points. Biblical womanhood, false femininity, or whatever.
God really isn't interested in how physically beautiful you are by the world's standards. He cares about where your heart is and if you are living your life to please and honor him.
Yeah, I had to cut the shit out of those because they used copyrighted music, and you are not going to get me. I almost forgot to show you guys some of the resources that was on their old website. Radical Womanhood, Feminine Faith in a Feminist World. Leslie Ludy. Does that ring a bell for any of you? Girls Gone Wise in a World Gone Wild. Becoming God's True Woman. Sex is Not the Problem, Lust Is. Sexual Purity in a Lust-Saturated World by Josh Harris. I Kiss Dating Goodbye. Preparing to Be a Helpmeet, Debbie Pearl. Oh my god. In 2016, they released their first book as Girl Defined, called Sex, Purity, and the Longing of a Girl's Heart. Jennanites know that I have a copy of this book. I got it from Thrift Books, and it was filled out by a fundy teenage girl. And it's kind of sad. I think update video number 2 or 3, I read from this book in more detail. It's exactly what you think it would be. But yeah, it's the same. It's just the same shit. It's gender roles, but they make it girly. Like, have you been satisfied with the results of counterfeit femininity in your life? Why or why not? And they said, absolutely not. No explanation. But anyway, they wrote that book. They've written a lot since then. I think they wrote one called Love Defined, which is about relationships, because at the time, Kristen was single. That was her whole thing for a long time. It was just about being single. Seriously. Look at all these examples.
Well, and I had relationships and interests, and I mean, my big top secret is that I actually bought a wedding dress when she was wedding dress shopping, because I found one that I loved
at the store I was shopping at for my dress,
and I actually bought one. That's how confident I was that I would probably be getting married like very soon after that, like a year or two, because it was like, oh, you know, there were
you loved the dress so much. You're like, I might as well snatch it up.
I might as well snatch it up, and I felt like there were enough available options. One of them would probably work out. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's what we thought. Hilarious. That was hiding in your closet for years. No one knew. Like the back of your closet. It was a huge dress.
If anyone needs a dress.
You're kidding. Anyways.
Finally, Bethy got engaged to Dave, and he was introduced as a recurring character on the Girl Defined show. And audiences, including myself, have been obsessed with Dave since he first got on the channel, because he's kind of a breath of fresh air. Like, still problematic, still fundy man, at least at the time. But we were just excited because he was, like, funny and kind of self-aware, and he would sing little ukulele songs. Girl Defined, they have a very large family, and they're all very tall. That's kind of their thing. Bethy's height is a very sore subject with her, and that's extremely understandable because she's literally a part of the machine that perpetuates the gender stereotyping in her religion, you know? She's the one saying girls do this and they look this way, and anything deviating from that is inappropriate, and you get your woman card revoked. And she plays that game, and she won that prize. So she ended up being super tall and having low self-esteem about it, yet she won't extend that same courtesy and grace to people who are experiencing gender dysphoria. She just says, you know, double down, God made you the way he made you, deal with it. She and her sister wrote an article about finding drag queen shoes at the thrift store. The entire article was about how messed up that was, how shocking it was to find men's shoes in the women's department. And we don't know to this day if that was really a drag queen shoe. Also, I had to dig deep into the bowels of the internet to find that screenshot. It's actually from my own video because this post has been long deleted. And I want to make a correction. They weren't talking about a drag queen. They were talking about a trans woman. So just fully evil from the get-go. We made up the gender part of gendered shoes. You know that, right, Bethy? But anyway, she made a big stink about it. I think I originally put in a clip of King of the Hill because that reminded me of a scene with Peggy Hill, but then it got copyright claimed, so you'll just have to fill that in for yourself.
This was in the news a lot, so you probably heard about it, but there was a big drag show, and it was literally titled Drag the Kids to Pride, a family-friendly drag show. That's how it was advertised, and basically they were saying this is the ultimate family-friendly drag show. Come, bring your family, bring your little kids. We're going to have drag performers in a nightclub, by the way. There's going to be dancing, and they even said, in fact, we're going to have 5 spots open for kids to join the stage to dance with the drag performers, and it's going to be this wonderful family-friendly night. Let's go. And in fact, when I saw some articles and some videos about this event, there was a huge neon sign in the background that literally said, it's not going to lick itself. We don't need to give you any more, information about that details. You can probably guess what that means in a nightclub like this.
Actually, Kristen, this would have been a really good time for you to provide more context and not let people guess what's going on, because I took the time to dig up footage from the event you're talking about, including that neon sign in the background. And one Google search allowed me to figure out that sign is associated with, are you ready for it? Cauldron Ice Cream, a Dallas area ice cream chain that is popular with all ages. So don't get mad at the queens, get mad at the ice cream. Anyway, though, Bethy, you got anything weird and offensive to say before we get back to the main story?
We are not going to give into the delusion. This is not going to help all of the major mental breakdowns that are going on in our world. And this is not helping it by affirming that 1, men can be women, or 2, men should dress up like women and put on fake breasts that are way oversized, massive rears, wear very skimpy clothing and dance around and twerk and do all this stuff.
But anyway, Bethy's height is a total sore subject.
Hey Morgan, it's so funny. You look very short.
Of course I do.
No, can we get a back to back?
We'll have to do this tomorrow night where I'm standing in between you and Kristen.
According to this Vice article, their first online venture, the now defunct website BairdSisters.com, landed flat, but the vision was there. In 2014, Beal and Clark rebranded as Girl Defined, Clark's idea, and narrowed their focus to the issues that mattered to high school and college-aged girls, namely sexual politics and temptation. From there, it all seemed to fall into place. Girl Defined was targeted towards high school and college-age girls, and both Bethy and Kristen were in their 20s when this was going on. And eventually, I mean, they're in their 30s now. It's been going on for almost 10 years. It's interesting that they were aiming for such a young demographic, and also like a demographic of high school and college of which they never went. Homeschool counts as school, but just like them talking about the culture of it. Like they're going to talk about prom and high school and stuff in here that they honestly know nothing about. A few months after the launch of their new blog, Clark wrote a post that quickly funneled traffic to the site and set the tone for content to come, called Why Christian Girls Post Seductive Selfies. It was both confessional and prescriptive, with Clark describing coating on makeup and waiting for the wind to blow in the right direction for a Facebook photo shoot until she turned to Ephesians and realized the error in her vanity. The post was noticed by Baker Books, a Christian publishing house, and led to the release of the sisters' debut novel, Girl Defined, God's Radical Design for Beauty, Femininity, and Identity. In 2016, shortly before the book went to print, Beal and Clark branched their ministry into YouTube, creating a channel that now has more than 150,000 subscribers, and began preparing for their first conference. It would be a space where girls could come and listen to the testimonies of older women, at once building friendships with other attendees who shared similar views on how best to serve Christ. This year, in main stage sermons, Beal and Clark preached the importance of submission in a world that has fetishized women's independence and self-sufficiency. Bree Clark, Kristen's sister-in-law, advised girls to layer t-shirts under dresses and order skirts in tall sizes to combine modesty and fashion. Jasmine Jacob, a one-time attendee, led a breakout session where she suggested pouring oneself into devotional life to bide time in, quote, seasons of singleness. And of course, they have been featured in multiple articles about purity culture, modesty, and online evangelism. They were featured shortly in Shiny Happy People. And speaking of Shiny Happy People, because of this documentary, Girl Defined started opening up about their experience with IBLP, the Bill Gothard religious homeschool organization. IBLP founder Bill Gothard is a notable sex predator, and this group is most famous for being associated with the Duggar family. Several members of the Girl Defined family, they were involved with IBLP. Okay, I actually wanted to take time to read this post because it's kind of nutty, and I didn't know some of this Girl Defined lore. So they said, the two of us were never members of IBLP like Ginger was. Funny story, they wouldn't accept our family as members because our dad has a beard. One of their many rules for membership, no beards for men. And I have a clip.
Side story, I remember I was at an event once and I met Bill Gothard in person, and you describe in your book how it's like this big moment if you meet him. And I remember feeling that way, like, oh, this is such a huge deal. I was in this line and we got to meet him. And he asked me, he said, so is your family, are they members of ATI, of the organization? We weren't. And so hilarious. The reason we weren't is because my parents originally had looked into joining, and one of the rules for men was that they could not have a beard. That they could not have any facial hair. And my dad has a beard. He always has. He did when he got married. He's never shaved it. And so they were like, what? My parents were like, this is crazy. And so they're like, okay, well, we don't need to join. We can do some of the programs. So when Bill Gothard asked me that, I literally told him, I was like, well, my parents looked into joining, but my dad has a beard and one of the rules says that men can't have beards, so we weren't able to join. And he kind of laughed. He was like, oh. And then he said, well, tell your parents to look into joining again. We'll make sure that they get in or whatever.
We were quite involved, though, as non-members. Yeah, if you give them money, they'll let you be involved. Who knew? We attended regional family trainings, went through the basic and advanced trainings, the Children's Institutes, and Excel. Excel was their 2-month finishing school for girls/women in Dallas, Texas. This is wild. I did not know that they were this involved. Here's the deal. We have tons of great memories with our family at those events. We made so many good friends. In fact, that's where Kristen met her husband, Zach. So on a family/friends memory level, we give it a 10 out of 10. The problems arise when you look into the legalistic teachings of IBLP. Everything about one's life was built on appearances and good works. The true gospel of Jesus' death and the resurrection was void. I, Bethany, have a clear memory at Excel of a young woman raising her hand asking if her incredibly large sweater was immodest. She was dead serious. It's no wonder many who attend IBLP have left the faith. When Jesus is left out, we're left with imperfect men trying to teach us their way. This picture is from my graduation day from Excel. Each girl would sew a vest from the ugliest fabric you'd seen and wear it for graduation. It's kind of comical. While I hold many memories dear to my heart, I don't hold the teachings dear. I'm in a journey to rid myself of legalistic womanhood. That's why I devoted an entire chapter to the wrong teachings of legalistic womanhood inside my new book, Made to be She. All right, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. We'll talk about where Girl Defined currently is after we talk about where they've been. Michael Mershon, their brother, he said that not only were they involved with IBLP, but he went to Alert, which is like a paramilitary, like fake scouting boot camp thing for IBLP boys and teens. And there are all kinds of horror stories that have come out of not just Alert, but IBLP in general. And the IBLP connection, not surprising. You know where I'm going with this. They weren't just involved with IBLP, they were involved with Vision Forum. This is a clip from the Mother of the Year ceremony that Vision Forum held for none other than Michelle Duggar. And Vision Forum was another homeschool lifestyle Christian enterprise, also ran by a charismatic but creepy sex pest, Doug Phillips. Vision Forum was based in Texas. Who else is from Texas?
There are girls that would have gone in a very wrong direction in their life had they not seen the examples of happiness and joy and love in the Duggar family provided by Jim Bob and Michelle. The Lord has chosen to put his anointing on Jim Bob and Michelle. And Michelle, we've been watching you love your husband. We've been watching you enjoy your children. We've been watching you respond with grace no matter what comes your way. We've been watching you delight in babies. But on behalf of the millions of women and husbands and sons and daughters that are encouraged and blessed by Michelle Duggar, we've put together a little thank you. And some dear ladies and very close friends in our community came together by the scores and scores and scores, and they wanted to just represent the millions of people who are grateful for Michelle Duggar. So would you kindly dim the lights while we share with you, Michelle, this very brief but very sincere, heartfelt thank you video prepared here in San Antonio just for you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Mrs. Duggar, for being a godly older sister in the Lord.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Except for Vision Forum's whole thing was like yesteryear. They were obsessed with like IBLP super into gender roles. Vision Forum sold you the stuff to do the gender roles. Like little girls had baking and sewing kits and little boys had, cowboys and camping kits. And it was just super awful. I went on a little bit of a rabbit hole and I learned about Vision Forum American Girl doll knockoff product, Beautiful Girlhood collection. Proverbs 31, you can see it right there. These were dolls that Vision Forum produced. I hunted down on the Wayback Machine page for these dolls. And as you can see, they had all different kinds of dolls. A doll house. What I wouldn't do to get a hold of one of those. Oh my God. They even have historical clothes. They've got Sacagawea, Dolly Madison, Priscilla Mullins. Look at this dollhouse. Look at this dollhouse. Oh my God. It's not archived. But anyway, isn't that extremely interesting? Anyway, long story short, go watch my Botkin video for more information about Vision Forum.
Girls face relentless pressure from friends, relatives, the media, youth groups, and even pastors to conform to the world's plan for young women. In all the confusion, we have failed to acknowledge that God's word prevails over all others.
Now, who does that remind you of?
Marilyn Monroe had everything a woman could dream of, and it still wasn't enough. What does that mean for average, everyday girls like us? Like Marilyn, millions of women are searching for their identity. Women all across the globe are asking the same questions. Am I valuable? Am I beautiful? What's my purpose as a woman? How can I find lasting fulfillment?
And I do believe that the Botkin sisters were extremely influential to people like Girl Defined. I think that they absolutely were the blueprint.
As much as we think about guys, we can often forget that they are people too. Every guy you know also has a sin nature at war against his desire to do right. And what makes this exponentially stickier is that our sin nature has a crush on their sin nature.
Honestly, I have had a lot of time to think about this Botkin Girl Defined connection, and I actually think I might be onto a conspiracy, because if you recall, Return of the Daughters came out in 2011, and what do you know, Models Wanted, Physical Features Not Required, came out in 2010, and then Girl Defined put out their book in 2016, and then Botkin sisters made It's Not That Complicated in 2017. So actually, have the Botkin sisters been copying off Girl Defined this whole time? Bethy and Kristen may have been homeschooled, but they sure enjoyed their fair share of extracurricular activities. Bethy has claimed in the past that she was allegedly scouted for some sort of D1 basketball scholarship. Nevertheless, somebody on Reddit has said that they actually played basketball with Bethy and even said the name of the organization that they were a part of. And so, you know, I guess this one is plausible. The other piece of Girl Defined lore that is important to note is that they both have claimed to have dabbled in modeling in the past.
He basically told me that they are looking for girls who are willing to show all. So basically willing to strip down in front of the camera for nothing, because in our modern age, that's basically what you have to do if you want to get anywhere in the modeling world. You have to be willing to basically throw all your morals and standards aside, because those are, you know, old fashioned. You don't need those anymore, and you need to be willing to show all. And so I just remember thinking, like, you know what? I actually don't want to do this. Like, what am I doing? I started disliking things about my outward appearance, and I became more obsessed with my hair, with my face, with having perfect skin than I ever had in my entire life. And I think one of the lies that so many of us believe, and that I believe too, is that we see models and we see really pretty girls and we think, oh, if only I were prettier like her, then I would be happy. Then all of my insecurities would go away. If only I were prettier. But here I was, a model, working behind the scenes with models. And that season, that 1 year season, was honestly one of the worst and most insecure years of my life.
All right, so we are going to talk about Girl Defined's family now, and so I have to give you a content warning for CSA. If you would like to skip that, go to this part of the video. Michael Mershon, he has a YouTube page and a Reddit account, and so this is how we know all this stuff. Michael Mershon, who is Bethy and Kristen's brother, he has come forward with his story of childhood SA, and he is an advocate for survivors of that abuse, and he has said on his Facebook page that his mother Heidi knew about this and did not take the proper steps to get him help.
I have had to go no contact with my parents. Unless you're on Reddit, you likely have yet to learn what is happening in the Baird world. My family has made a point of making their lives very public, which would be fine if they were actually speaking truth. The reality is that virtually none of what my mother, Heidi Baird, shared was the truth. I was pushed too far this last time and decided to expose the truth to the world via a post on Reddit. I did not know what to expect when I posted it, but I was done being silenced. As of this writing, that post has over 1.3 million views. I won't rehash what was said, but if you wish to see it and judge my actions for yourself, you will find it at this link. As for what pushed me to that point, I will give you the high-level overview. I was abused as a child by at least 3 different people. The first that I remember happened at age 5 or 6. What's worse was that my mother knew about the first time and chose to do and say nothing about it. Instead of talking about it or helping me understand what had happened, it was swept under the rug as if it never even happened. I was the scapegoat in my family, and in the role of the scapegoat, I was forced to carry large amounts of blame and shame so my parents and siblings didn't have to. My parents abused me mentally, physically, and emotionally throughout my childhood. I was homeschooled my entire life and completely isolated from all but a few people hand-selected by my parents. I was indoctrinated with IBLP and ATI, so-called Christian teachings. Think shiny happy people. I was completely cut off from outside help, and the only choice I had if I wanted to survive was to stay silent and bear whatever was placed on me. Anything but compliance and silence was met with swift punishment and humiliation to set an example. I am posting this because I believe there is power in naming your abuser, and Heidi Baird was my first abuser. I want the truth to be told because I know that a whole generation was raised under similar teachings, and it is time for all of us to speak the truth. If you relate to this story or have been through something similar, then know you are not alone. Know that it is not your fault and that you did not do anything to deserve what was done to you. If you relate, then you have likely been through hell. You have known extreme pain, extreme hurt, and crushing loneliness. Hope is one thing they don't want you to have, but also the one thing they can never take away from you.
Jordan and I, from Jordan and McKay, we talked about the first post that Michael Mershon did, and we talk about that in depth in that video if you want to check that out, because he did give several AMAs where he was really specific about certain stuff, like answering questions about his relationship with his sisters and what his mom did and how he went no contact with her and just all kinds of stuff.
So my cries for help were perceived as they were perceived as anger and hatred and rebelliousness, and basically the end result was that I was punished. It got so bad at one point that I was actually kicked out of my room and had to move into a cot where I had 3 shelves as punishment. It escalated further to one point when I was around 16 where I actually got kicked out of the house. Or technically, I guess I left of my own accord because they gave me an ultimatum and I figured I could just do it on my own. So I lasted a whole night or maybe 2, I don't even remember. But then I was back at home and decided that I would just kind of suck it up and get through the next, couple of years till I left the house.
So they had a great-grandpa, but I don't really think that's going to make a difference. Johann Grosslerscher was a NAZI mayor. Yeah, you heard that right. According to this Reddit post, and I'm going to link all these in the description, this person did some actual hardcore research. And so I'm just going to read to you some things that they found. He was a member of the NSDAP, or the National Socialist German Workers' Party, since 1925. While it was illegal to be a member of the NAZI party. Same article states he was arrested multiple times in 1934, more than likely for participating in illegal NAZI demonstrations. Germany annexed Austria on March 12, 1938, and then on March 18, 1938, 6 days later, he became mayor of Saalfelden, Austria. He lived to be 98 and stayed in the same town and the same house, despite showing up in tons of history books and articles about the cruelty of his regime. And there are some pretty horrible things in this screenshot, and I can't describe them because of demonetization, but if you read this master post for yourself, you can really get into the specifics of the horrors. Oh man. And then they found an old blog post of Bethany's where she refers to her grandpa as a prisoner of war. Oh man, I cannot believe this is still up. I will give Bethy some sort of grace here. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe Heidi told her a different version of events. And you can't exactly control if you have a grandpa who is a NAZI, but you don't have to be proud of it. Same goes with any of the conservative beliefs that she is espousing. Nobody's making you say that. And I know that her sisters are just as Republican as she is, if not more. And they don't post the same kind of stuff that Bethany does. They keep that to themselves. Except for Susanna. She's always been vocal about her opinions. She's obsessed with Lord of the Rings, which is something I've noticed. A lot of fundies like Lord of the Rings. They had a Lord of the Rings party, but anyway. She actually cosplayed as a man character, which is perfectly fine. But she was, I think, Aragorn. She looks good. Don't get me wrong. This is a great cosplay, and I'm happy that she has a passion. It's just kind of, a little hypocritical. And yes, I'm aware that wearing a costume and experimenting with gender expression in that way is considered more appropriate and allowed, especially in these conservative circles, and it is not considered drag, although in my opinion it's drag. You're playing with gender expression, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted to point out it's okay for her to express herself in this way and experiment and not face backlash. But anybody else who deviates from that gender norm is a sinner. So just consider that.
True love is speaking truth kindly, and it's not truthful to tell a biological man that he can be a woman, and it's not truthful to tell a biological woman that she can truly be a man.
Hello, I'm very cold. So, anyway, I needed to introduce this next segment, which is about their sister Alyssa and how she had to flee Ukraine. And I didn't have a good way to tie it to the current topic, so this is me awkwardly segueing you into the next section.
Marika, the tragedy happening in Ukraine can be felt by several families here in Texas. I spoke with a San Antonio woman whose pregnant sister is currently looking for safety in Ukraine.
We wake up today at 5 because of rockets sounds over our house. And
this YouTube video posted yesterday is Andriy Petrenko in Kyiv, Ukraine, moments after his wife Alyssa left to find safety.
So he was helping his parents, sent Alyssa along with a family to try to escape to Poland. They tried to get through the border, but there were miles and miles and miles of cars literally just not moving.
Alyssa is Bethany Bill's sister, Andriy her brother-in-law. Her sister and their family are all from San Antonio. She says Alyssa moved to Ukraine last year after the two got married.
It's just, there's nothing that we can do for them. And, it's hard.
Bill says Alyssa is 9 months pregnant, days away from giving birth.
And I know for Alyssa and Andriy, they just wanted to get through the birth.
She says right now the two are just trying to get back together.
He was on the road all night. He's been up. I don't even know the last time he slept.
To find a safe place for Alyssa to have the baby closer to the Romanian border outside the war zone.
The problem is that Ukraine has announced that no men between the ages of, teens to 60-year-olds are allowed to leave the country, and Andriy is Ukrainian.
She says their family has been left with a sense of hopelessness, in constant prayer for their safety.
We are safe, Alyssa's safe. So just in this moment, please pray about Alyssa and delivery so she would be at safe place.
Now, Bethany tells me she has been in constant communication with her sister via text, but just an awful and scary situation unfolding, keeping them in our thoughts and prayers. I'll send it back to you.
So many loved ones here, so worried about family overseas. It breaks your heart. Thank you so much, Brittany.
Okay, so that was 2 years ago. What has happened since? Well, from what I have gathered, Alyssa and her husband, Andriy, live in Hungary now. And Andriy runs a soccer ministry, and they seem to have a connection to the FC Braves San Antonio. So Andriy is a soccer coach, and he helps the kids to play soccer and worship. I don't know how often he comes to America. Even various members of the Baird family have come to visit Alyssa in Europe, and they seem to be doing all right. Like I said, they have a ministry, and they even had a second child. Watch my other Girl Defined videos if you want to know more about Andriy's personality, because he is, he's really fun guy.
So you're not like you're not like independent, you're not like trying to do your own thing. So you allow to be led, and you allow to for me to experience what is to be a leader, what is to be a man.
Since the beginning of Girl Defined, Bethy and Kristen have kept a pretty consistent message of so-called biblical gender roles, sexual purity, and judgmental, shame-based bigotry.
We don't want you to fall into this trap and to fall into this idea that gender is something we can choose, that it's interchangeable, that there shouldn't be unique roles and purposes. We want you to see throughout this session that our feminine design is really a good and beautiful thing, that your feminine design and your purpose as a female is good. And our good, awesome God created it. And we want you to learn how to fight for it.
And in our culture, we do often hear like, oh, lust, it's a guy problem. Sexual sin, it's a guy problem.
Pornography, it's a guy problem. Yeah.
But the reality is it's not a guy problem. It's a human problem. And we as humans, all of us, male and female, struggle with sexual sin. So that's just another lie.
So basically God's word is saying that we need to abstain. We need to run away from. We do not need to give into sexual immorality. And that can include sexting. That can include anything that is of a sexual nature and it's not your husband. So if you're not married, you shouldn't be participating in that sexual act, sending nude photos, sexting, having sex before marriage. You need to say, no, that's not God's best for me.
It's her life story talking about her growing up, fatherless in a broken home, experiencing gender confusion, and how at age 19, she came face to face with the gospel and God transformed her life. And she shares her incredible testimony and story in this book.
Sometimes okay, the battle, the temptation comes into the mind and you're just randomly going about your day doing dishes. I mean, this has happened to me multiple times, and this thought comes in. I'm tempted to meditate on it, to give into this lustful sin. And in that moment, I just start praying. And I think there's two things that you can do in that moment. You can pray for yourself and you can pray for others. So you can all start and just say, God, help me in this moment. Please remove this thought from my mind. I'm really tempted right now. Give me the strength to resist this temptation. And then I will immediately go in and just start praying for whoever comes to my mind. I'll pray for my family. I'll pray for my friends.
I kind of think of everyone trying to be someone else's superior. I'm going to hold you accountable to my own opinions and standards. I kind of think of a deadly game, because soon you're going to be that person that's on the wrong side of history. Because the insanity with what's going on with just the transgender craze and the whole movement is out of control. And I feel like there need to be some common sense voices spoken out into the world through YouTube, because whether you are a Christian, whether you are religious, conservative, not, I feel like there are so many who are coming forward saying, this is insane. Something has to stop. Things just keep getting crazier and crazier, to the point where in a university with tons of incredible women, a university decides to be so woke, so politically correct, that they choose the one man who thinks he's a woman to be Woman of the Year. I mean, it is just literally delusional and out of control.
And so then over the course of this year, I was in ministry school. I had some really tough meetings. I had really tough moments with the Lord, where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'll be honest, I would get on my hookup apps and I would hook up with guys every once in a while when I felt like I just didn't have it, or I wasn't being accepted, or whatever it was. Or
just
I felt
kind of looking
lonely.
for some okay, I need some affirmation. I need some acceptance.
Exactly. And honestly, it wasn't even just a whole sexual thing. It was just the idea of being held by a guy and just being with him. I mean, of course, it's just the idea of being with your husband. You want to be next to him sometimes and just lay on him and feel him. So it's the same thing.
I had no idea how much purity culture had impacted my view of womanhood.
From modesty to my purity ring to saving my first kiss for marriage.
I fell into this ditch of religious womanhood where I was trying to build my identity on looking the part.
I was completely missing the gospel. Womanhood was never mine to define.
They have been changing. They've gotten older. They are married. They have children. The internet certainly looks like a completely different place than it was when they first started. The society that we live in has changed. They've changed. And now I can kind of pinpoint where they started to deviate, because I'm a year plus removed from it. But I'm pretty sure I can start pointing at least a rough time frame of when this happened. In April of 2023, Dave actually posted a bunch of different videos to his Instagram. He has since deleted his Instagram, presumably because he doesn't want the attention from the thousands of people online. Yes, I am including myself in that roundup of thousands of people talking about Dave. I made a whole video about it, and sometimes I do feel really guilty about perhaps having played a part in him deleting his Instagram. I don't know if that is the case, but I still feel bad.
I am a motion designer, I'm an amateur musician, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and about a year ago, I realized I didn't like my life, and I didn't like myself. When I left home at the age of 20, all I wanted was to be liked, to be appreciated, to have attractive people think that I'm attractive, and so I spent about 9 years of my life chasing that. 3 years into my marriage, and I'm miserable. I blamed my wife, it wasn't her fault. I blamed my parents, of course, it wasn't their fault. There was really only one answer. I had driven myself to deny my integrity and hide my flaws because anything that threatened people's approval in my life had to go. I was choosing to be a coward, and deep down, I knew it. I was suppressing my life energy by adapting myself to what I thought other people wanted from me. I was emotionally manipulative and controlling in my marriage, and ultimately ineffective and undesirable. So I've been making some changes. For the past 6 months or so, I've been confronting myself in various areas of my life, and I've realized something. Living my life for the approval of other people is a ridiculous waste.
And so he probably didn't want all those eyes on him. He didn't think that his little video would get that much attention. Hey, by the way, this is your content warning for skip to this part in the video if you do not want to hear about that.
And I like the word fantasy because my fantasy had to do not really with me being so feeling so worthless necessarily. That probably was in there somewhere. But what made my fantasy compelling was how bad Bethany would feel if I were no longer here. And that I had some moments where those fantasies were more dramatic, and that's when I basically decided I need to do something about this. And so I went and got some therapy.
This was, this is shocking to hear. And it made me wonder how Bethy felt about this video being out. Maybe she asked him to take it down, I don't know. But a lot of people had a lot to say about it, myself included. I made a whole video talking about not just that, but some other things that were happening in the Girl Defined Diverse at the time. Don't make me play a clip from these people ever again. Also in April, Bethy, seemingly in response to Dave's therapy era, she started on a whole side mission on her channel to kind of deter people from secular licensed therapy and get them to go to Christian counseling instead. For context, Dave was going to a secular licensed therapist to process the feelings he was going through in the video I just showed you. And it seems like Bethy, in reaction to that, just kind of wanted to do the opposite. And I'm starting to see a pattern here.
I would recommend, this is my personal recommendation, I got counseling through the Association of Certified Biblical Counselors, ACBC. I'll link them below. I mean, I think we link them in every podcast, but you can literally search Association of Certified Biblical Counselors, and you can find a list of their recommended counselors that are trained through them, and they're all going to be like biblically based. And I think that, they don't come from that like victim mentality at all, and they're just incredible. So that's
they don't let you.
They don't let you just be like, ooh, like,
oh, that's no. In the sense that, no. You know what I mean?
It's not like talk therapy at all. It's
I used to kind of hate the biblical counseling world.
You did?
I used to, yeah. And it's not that I don't. It's not that I 100% agree with the paradigm, but I have realized through my own work and development that it's not all bad to just tell someone like, hey, you need to like get a hold of yourself and, stop treating yourself like you're freaking
defeated all the time.
Yeah. I just think it's really unfair, the picture that they paint of secular therapy, acting like it's this ooey gooey, like woo woo, just like feelings thing. Like, it is really ignorant, and it's kind of disappointing to hear that Dave was saying that, especially because he did benefit so much from secular therapy, that he's like, oh, they don't let you be a victim, they don't let you just act defeated, they don't let you feel sorry for yourself. Like, that's just like an unhealthy view. That's not what happens. Therapy is challenging. It does make you accountable for your actions, and you do learn about yourself, but you are also, like I said, challenged, and you become a better person. And there's also other types of therapy besides just talk therapy. There's all kinds of different programs. There's more intensive stuff. There's like cutting edge programs and technologies, and the world of therapy is not this like one tiny thing that they think it is. You know what I mean? And it does change a lot of people's lives for the better, and I wish it was something that was more affordable and more widespread, and I truly wish that everybody could be paired up with a therapist who is like perfect for their situation. And, you know, it's just the way they're describing it is just not accurate. And yeah, some people have a bad time or bad experiences with certain therapists, but to paint it broadly as this like self-obsessed victimhood thing is just not accurate, and I honestly think it's kind of dangerous because that might discourage people from going, and I believe that everyone could benefit from therapy. So I made my video in May, and then in August of that same year, 2023, another video came out from Dave and Bethy that really had people talking, and I was excited about this too. Another thing that kind of tipped people off that maybe something was going on behind the scenes, or maybe Dave was deconstructing, was Dave and Bethy's completely different reactions to the Barbie movie. And if you guys remember, during that summer, somebody's reaction to the Barbie movie was kind of like a litmus test for how they felt about feminism, right? At least on the surface level, but that's for another day. And it might seem inconsequential, but like it actually was a big deal because Bethy was saying it was man-hating. I mean, she even put that in the title of the video, and she was irritated and annoyed by how woke it was. But Dave had actual, like, interesting, insightful commentary about the Barbie movie, especially the character of Ken.
I'm just Ken, that's enough, and I'm great at doing stuff.
That character, Ryan Gosling, you know, really explores masculinity in an approachable way, like kind of deconstructing the patriarchy, but also talking about toxic masculinity and like the roles that men are supposed to play and are forced to do, and you know how they have to live up to a certain standard, and you know, just thinking about how society treats men versus women. It's a very interesting conversation that Dave was having. Bethy didn't want to be having that conversation.
And then the more I thought about it, the more I appreciated this, and the more I read about it too, where it wasn't really trying. I think a lot of conservatives thought, oh, it's just bashing men. And I think that what it was doing was it was more saying like, here's a stereotypical world, you know, Barbie land, and here are some of the impacts on the real world with expectations for women and stuff like that. And here are some of the kind of tropes and stereotypes about patriarchy, and you know, we're going to kind of explore that. What if patriarchy came to Barbie land, you know, at one point in the movie? And so I really like that idea. It was very experimental to me, of just like, let's put these stereotypes along with these stereotypes, and let's flip the power dynamic, and then let's see what happens, and then let's flip it back, and then let's like try to come to something that maybe transcends both of those. And I think that filmmakers did try to do that, especially near the end. They tried to, and we can go into some of why.
Yeah, I'm resisting rolling my eye.
You're resisting, okay. But no, I think that
not at you, at like that whole thing.
And it was one of those things that, looking back now, we can all go, there was something there. Something was going on with these two. Now in October of 2023, the same month as the Men Can't Have Breasts post, Bethy and Kristen released a video saying, we changed our minds on modesty. And it was interesting because they didn't really change their minds on modesty. They don't want you walking around in a bikini, but they talked about how they felt objectified in purity culture.
And I felt very similarly in getting married it was it's the woman's job to protect the man, to keep him from sinning, to keep him from lusting, to keep him from failing. When you get married, it's your job to keep the marriage together and make sure that you adultery proof your marriage, it's all on you, like all on the woman. And I think that a lot of that stemmed from, as I'm thinking back to like my own journey and convictions and perspectives over the years, I think a lot of it did stem back to a lot of the teaching that we were exposed to when we were younger in some of these ultra conservative groups where modesty was front and center. And it was like not just front and center for women, but like one of the most important things about godly womanhood. And I remember, hearing sessions on this and seeing the way other women would dress. And it was like, talk about not wanting to objectify women. Like it was this, we were pushing it, the idea in these conservative circles was we don't want to objectify women and sexualize women like the culture is doing, the secular sinful culture. That's all it does is objectify and sexualize women. So we're going to pull against that. And instead we are going to be godly and modest. And it became such a focus, so hyper-focused that I think in some ways we were being objectified in the 100%. Sense that we were now viewing ourselves as nothing more than sexual objects that we had to cover.
And I tried to give Girl Define their flowers at the time. Like, it's amazing that you're realizing this stuff and you're starting to think differently about how you were raised and you're starting to be critical of these systems
in the world. So like even when Dave and I were dating and we were engaged and then we got married, I remember just like feeling the stress of like going into a restaurant and being like, oh my goodness, look, there's a girl there and she's got like a bunch of cleavage showing. It was hard for me to be present and enjoy because I just kept thinking like, oh my goodness, how can a man be at a restaurant and see the cleavage and not just be like lusting tons. So it was like always felt like this battle and and he wasn't saying that, I was putting that on him and I was putting that in the world. So my life in the world, my life was almost like this revolving around everything I was against, all the problems in the world. And it was hard to like actually live and enjoy because, oh my goodness, the billboard, oh my goodness, the mail, like all of this stuff. And I almost felt like responsible for having to like keep him from failing and to not make other people fail. And I wouldn't have said that stuff out loud, but it kind of was like like I can remember situations like that, the stress of it all. And even having conversations like during premarital counseling about this, like it was a struggle.
And with that, we move into current year, where things really start to get crazy. So Paul and Morgan, they have a series that's called 24 Hours With. They spend 24 hours sometimes with different Christians and talk to them and try to see their sides of things. And that's how they want you to think that the series goes. They talked to Dave and Bethy, Paul and Morgan did. They went to Texas and they filmed this thing in February of 2024. And I actually wanted to tell you guys a little fun fact of how I got my video out so fast. So they released theirs on a Friday and I had my reaction to it the next day. And that's because I was already working on a Girl Defined update video. Like I was already working on that. And then I saw they were releasing the video on Friday and I was like, we need to shoot our shot. So we recorded the reaction and we actually got the full video done because if you've seen this video, Girl Defined number 6, the first half is just a regular video, like one you're watching. And then the second half is me and James watching the Girl Defined Paul and Morgan collab, which at the time we didn't know was going to be like a big deal. It ended up being a huge deal, but at the time we just thought this was like, just tack it on. And it ended up taking forever to upload. Like it wasn't even going to be done uploading until after midnight. So we decided to push it to the next day. And then because it was so soon after the video itself came out, I think that's what made Paul jump into the live chat. So that was interesting. And then, can't get rid of him. He's like Elon Musk at Trump's house. Like, can't get rid of Paul. Get out of my comment section, Paul. That really did start something because what was everybody talking about in the comment section? Dave's deconstruction. Because in this 24 hours video, Dave straight up says he's progressive now and he's changing his views on things.
It's got to feel a little bit good to be the one that they like.
Yeah, I think they kind of see you from some of the videos I watched. I think they kind of see you as more progressive in your views and more open-minded, where they would they would look at Bethany and be like, Bethany What's
It's just interesting to see how Bethy was reacting, because I did kind of expect her to freak out, but she was kind of level-headed about it, but still you could tell that this was not something she wanted to be going through.
You seem very much at peace with him working through this stuff and figuring out like where he stands on things. What do you think? Why do you think you're so at peace with that?
I mean, from the beginning, honestly, like a huge goal of mine in marriage was to not try to control my husband, and I had seen that done like so much, and it seems like there's a happy marriage on the front, you know, all of these conservative values and all of this, you know, like going to the word and stuff, but then behind the scenes there was like a lot of anxiety or just like a lot of dysfunction. I didn't really care about Dave like putting like, I mean I did, but like I didn't want him to just appear a certain way for like my own ego or image or whatever. The like fruit of some of that, like just the anxiety and the struggle and the just like, I don't know, like it's just been difficult. Dave is someone who like is constantly seeking outside advice, and the mentors, our pastors, the men in his life, I highly respect and I think are really amazing. And I guess it's something I'm not really afraid of, because I just, maybe some of this practical stuff that he's learning now was missed as he was growing up, and so it's almost like rewinding, and although not all of it's like from a Christian perspective, to me it seems like it's been really beneficial in his life. And now like we don't listen to all the same things and read all the same things, and if I want peace in my life, I am very much like go to the word, and like my relationship with Christ is where I find that, and that's not always the case for him, but like it doesn't bother me that much, which sounds crazy.
Also mentions that her and Dave are Lutheran now, which is very interesting.
Well, he actually initiated and led us switching churches. So we were going to kind of like a basic Bible believing, non-denominational type of church. And it's the church I grew up in. I was very comfortable there. And he wasn't super excited about it. And he really was the one who initiated us leaving. So now we go to a small Lutheran church, which was so different than anything I grew up with. But that's kind of like as much as he might read all these books about philosophy or whatever, I don't know, all this other stuff, he is like the one who led our family into this church that is amazing. And I have learned and grown like so much as a Christian. And I think that if I had tried to control that, like, no, I want to stay at our previous church, like that's scary to move churches. And now we're in this Lutheran church with all of this liturgy and, you know, like infant baptism and all these crazy things. We wouldn't have made this transition if I had like dug my heels in, but I was excited about it. And it was, even though it was a little scary, and that's like all because of Dave's leadership, you know? And so I feel like our kids are in a wonderful place. Like, although we might not agree on everything theologically or how we go about practically getting help, like he to me is someone who is like very much has like a true, genuine faith. It just looks really different from mine. But I view my kids as having like an incredible dad.
That seems like really significant. It seems like changing your political party, like changing your denomination. I don't know, but that started a wave of all kinds of stuff. Bethy, around this time, said on her Instagram that she would not have married Dave if she had known that he was going to go through a faith crisis. This picture is from the last video that I did, and it says, "Are you now supporting Christians marrying unbelievers? It seems you are much less opposed by saying God meant you to marry him." And she said, "What? No, I fully 100% believe Dave was a believer when we married. I wouldn't have married him otherwise. He's in a serious season of doubt, question, confusion, and searching. I believe God has us together for a good reason, though. It's not the end of his story. It's not the end of my story." March 8th, 2024. Dave and Bethy drop a bombshell.
Oh, he's a Christian but nice, or he's like not. He's just compromised his faith, or he doesn't have strong faith, or whatever.
Or some people are mad at Paul for like insinuating
mad at Paul for
that
yeah.
You're deconstructing.
Yeah, which I would say in that case, with Paul and I, we also had more private conversations, and so Paul's operating with more information than what you see in the video, and so get up off Paul.
Paul was in the comment section saying that Dave was not a Bible-believing Christian. Just full, raw, honest vulnerability. Dave having a faith crisis, and how is Bethy dealing with it?
It sort of requires you to feel really bad, or to at least admit, you're just sort of nothing and you have nothing. And so that's why you need Jesus. And isn't that such great news? It's like, it's just stopped being good news for me. Like you really need to know God's love more, or you're not trusting him, or you just need to find your identity in him and rest in that. And so it's like, it just becomes another work. Like, oh, I'm not resting enough. Why isn't this working? It's, so there was some frustration there, because that would throw things into chaos. That would, it would be hard to go to church. It would be hard to be married to Bethany. It would be hard to do a lot of these things. I'm established in Christian community. So it just makes it, because of my own choice to be in a Christian community, makes it challenging if I'm going to basically say, hey, I don't think I'm a Christian anymore.
I've never had the feeling or belief that Bethy was going to go full pride parade, but I thought maybe if anybody was going to get her to change, it would be Dave, because she does look up to him so much and she does respect him so deeply.
I think that it's more like, when I think about it, I guess it's more those fears of like, what exactly does the future look like for us and for this? Because at this point, like, we both see ourselves like not, you see yourself more deconstructing and I see myself not. Like, in the sense of like, I see myself, I don't know. I like being a Christian. I like that trust in the Lord and stuff.
I guess maybe it'll be a competition of who can love the other person the best, and thereby making the best apologetic, the best argument for their view.
And people do change, and Bethy is probably at the beginning of her deconstruction journey, and don't be fooled, that is what this is. And there is also the timeline where Bethy deconstructs some things but not others, because it is kind of terrifying. It's kind of world shattering to deconstruct. And so she's only going to do a little bit at a time. And as we'll cover in a few minutes, she seems to be more okay with gay people than she's ever been. She's not pro-trans. Bethy is not an ally as long as she continues to spread transphobic propaganda and platform bigots like they still currently do on their channel. And in the Paul and Morgan 24 Hours With video that took place like 2 weeks before the Dave deconstruction video, Bethy says she's not going to say she's sorry. She's not going to deconstruct, and she's not going to start waving pride flags.
Yeah, we've grown in this way, but we cannot expect a girl to find apology tour.
It's not gonna happen.
All right.
And what does it fix? What does it fix? Right.
What does it fix except for appease the haters? Which that's not our goal.
No, they want you on the stake after that. They don't like.
We will share how we've grown and changed.
Fire. What is it called? The stake.
Oh, no,
the grill. They want you gone.
Burned at the stake.
Yeah, they want you to do what Josh Harris did. They don't just want you to apologize.
Yeah.
They want you to completely deconstruct and have rainbow flags and do what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
we're not doing that.
No intentions to deconstruct.
No.
From Girl Defined.
Not gonna happen.
In May of this year, ex-Mormon YouTubers Sam and Tanner, aka Zelf on the Shelf, went to Texas to visit with Dave and Bethy, and they collabed and made several videos together, including this interview that I will now play a clip from. The reason why this was significant is because it really seems like Bethy was being, I swear to God, pro-gay.
It's just like if Davey grew up and he were like, I'm gay. It's like, literally to me, I'm not gonna, I'm like, I love you. Come in my home. Come, bring your person with you. Like, I will love you and have open arms, just like I hope you would do for me.
Like, that's insane, right? Like, never in a million years would I think that Bethy from Girl Defined would say that she would love a hypothetical gay child and their partner. I will give her credit for that. That's amazing. Then she follows it up with, but But I still think that God's design is the best.
Like at the end of the day, it's like I wouldn't want any belief, any orientation, anything to ever interfere with the way that I care for someone, love someone, welcome them into my home. And I guess my hope is that even if I hold a different belief or you hold a different belief from me about that, that we can still, like, my heart truly is that I want people to like thrive and have the most meaningful, well-loved life possible. And like for me as a Christian particularly, like I still at this point like believe for me personally that God had a specific design with that. But it's like it doesn't, I believe that because I think that that is the answer to the most flourishing life possible and the most I guess abundant life, whatever, however you want to say it. But that I don't force that on anyone or think that you have to do that. You know, it's just a belief that I hold, but I don't want less happiness. I don't want like, oh, well, then you shouldn't be with that person. It's like, this is what I believe because I think this will make everyone like the most fulfilled. But if you choose something different, that doesn't change my perspective, my value, my love.
I really do want to try to show compassion to Bethy because she seems like she is like in that very moment processing some things out loud and she's kind of putting two and two together, but she can't let that old Christian habit die hard. She kind of relies on using her religion to shield her from having to face these scary thoughts and change her beliefs. And how is she going to rectify that with the relationships that she has? And is it possible for her to be friends with gay people? Is it possible for her to actually respect a trans person? There are certain things that you just can't agree to disagree on, and somebody's humanity is not one of those things. And I absolutely think that if she doesn't fix her tune about trans people, I don't know how this whole thing's going to end up because people's lives are at stake.
And it's hard. Like, I don't know, like, is there a world where we can hold those different perspectives and see the heart for someone like me isn't because I want there to be like laws against that or I don't want people to find happiness. You know, it's like, I'm not going to ever dictate that on anyone personally, but I can hold a belief that I think is true. And at the end of the day, we're all hoping that everyone has like that experience of love and happiness, but we just, our approach to it and the way we go about it, like we believe that there is a different way to get there, you know? But I'm like, you know, Tanner, just the way you are, it's like, I have so much love in my heart for you. And it's like, you're welcome in my home, come back, you know? And I hope that you can have so much like grace and patience toward me, just knowing like, okay, is her mind going to change one day? Who knows, you know? But like her heart is for people to be loved. And I might not agree. And I think that view is harmful, but you know, like she really is trying, you know, and this is where she's at. But you know, for Christians who are like, oh, well then like trying to make all these rules in place or trying to like really genuinely not having open arms or like Christian parents who literally like don't, you know, love their children. Like, I think that's horrible. And I don't agree with any of that.
I also wanted to be serious for a second. And on the off chance that Bethany is ever watching this, or if this message resonates with any of you at home, Bethy, if you genuinely are trying to be an ally, be a friend to the queer community, that's amazing, and congratulations on that first step. But that love and acceptance has to include trans people. And not only that, but if you want to show your love to this group of people in a tangible, practical way, then you cannot vote Republican. You cannot vote for things that will harm that community. If you want to truly be someone's friend and you want to love them, you cannot spread harmful propaganda and rhetoric, and you cannot say that an entire group of people are evil, that they're groomers, And I know that this is really hard. And I know you're worried about losing all your church peers, and it is possible to change. It might take a long time. It is going to be scary, but you have to keep going, especially if you want to continue having relationships with people who are different than you, people who have different beliefs, who are queer. You're going to have to be more curious, open-minded, non-judgmental, and just be ready to love people for who they are and not try and change them. And you can't be voting for Trump. And that all makes me very curious, because I'm going to bring up something from the past and the present here. I don't know if Dave is signing off on his likeness being used by Bethy to promote homophobia. She did that, I think, a couple years ago with this awkward ass reel talking about we believe in biblical marriage on this page. I don't know if Dave knew about that, and if we're going by the Bible and these people are going to try and be patriarchal, then he should put his foot down. He should say, don't use my fucking image for your homophobia. But anyway, Dave did clarify, at least to me, more of his views on the LGBTQ community in that interview.
Don't share the same assumptions right now. And I'm not saying that I have landed, but I'm a lot more comfortable to celebrate people's, what they identify as, especially adults, what they choose to, how they choose to think about gender, how they choose to think about their own sexuality, who they're sleeping with. It's like in general, my emotional propensity or my emotional preference is just acceptance. You do you, like, don't harm people. Don't harm other people, consenting adults, that sort of thing. So man and man, many men, many women together, it's like, whatever, like, I don't,
And shortly after this collab, Bethy and Dave took a social media break. They have also both deleted their personal social media pages as well as their joint YouTube channel. One of the reasons why people were speculating that something major was happening at Girl Defined this summer was the fact that Girl Defined was shutting down their merch store.
And one of the big restructurings is that we are shutting down the Girl Defined shop. This has been an amazing resource for the Girl Defined Sisterhood, with all sorts of encouraging merch and devotional resources and Bible study resources. And all of the physical products are being cleared out right now. We're having a giant warehouse sale online. Wow, I'm joking. And everything has to go. We have already sold out of a ton of stuff, but if you have wanted to get like a Girl Defined shirt, something to just like rep the sisterhood, now is your last chance. There are still a few shirt options with multiple sizes, but most everything is down to either like one size or sold out. So if you want to grab something, either that or some of our devotional resources or just some of our really cute merch, headbands, hair clips, earrings, stuff like that, go to girldefined.com/shop or just drop the word merch before everything is gone for good.
I went and looked, and they did not sell all their merch. It's still up on the website, 50% off. Don't buy their merch. If you have money to buy merch, ironically, buy mine. But anyway, yeah, they're shutting down the warehouse, which is interesting, because it just makes me wonder, like, why? Like, did it cost more money to maintain the website? Did it cost more money to ship things than it was worth? I guess they came back from their break. They're producing content now still. A lot of it is reactions to their old videos, which has been kind of fun to watch. Although it seems they still agree with their old problematic selves.
Years old. And in fact, I love Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, which it's the transgender craze amongst teen girls. And she does an incredible work of documenting just the reality of this kind of the contagion. The contagion, that's it. It's like a contagion of young girls influencing other young girls to basically think like, well, maybe I'm also transgender. And it's like spreading throughout schools, spreading throughout all of these like middle school age girls. And they're doing things that are irreversibly damaging to their body, chopping off parts and getting surgeries and things that they cannot change that will dramatically affect their future.
one day as grown women, their ability to have children, pleasure
It's
and
true.
intimacy, like all of these things that's so sad. And there are these young teen girls, but being so influenced by their
For
peers.
sure.
And I think because adults are planting all of these seeds, and they're getting it in the media, in all the TV shows they watch, the music, the children's
For
books
sure.
they're being exposed to, like it's just so sad.
Okay. So I was skipping through the Girl Defined reacts to their own video, Is Gender a Personal Choice? And after I got to the part where they were talking about transgenderism being a contagion, Bethy at the end throws another curveball at me and starts talking about she has a gay neighbor, a gay family that she's friends with. She says she's friends with them. I don't know if they're friends with her. And not only does she love them, but she's going to invite them to church.
Christians can also like view this as the ultimate biggest sin, and like we can be so prideful, so have all our own issues, but we can be like, well, that's like and instead of just like it's the basic question, but like what would Jesus do when we're actually in these relationships? And my hope with these friends of mine is to just show them the love of Christ, which is like what is the fruit of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness. Like I think those are truly the things that are going to like reflect the gospel well. And I won't hide the fact that I'm a Christian. I plan to invite them to church as our relationship develops, because I think my church is amazing, and I think that people would come around and just love so much. And I hope to be a reflection of Christ that is, not looking down like I'm so much better, but really like at the foot of the cross, we all need Jesus, and we all have different areas that we are struggling in or have to repent of.
Did you catch that? She said we all have things we need to repent of, because she's implying that being gay is a sin, but it's not any worse of a sin than the other sins. And so if you could just fix that one little thing, then we'd be good to go. I want to give Bethy credit. This is more of a nuanced take than I've ever seen her have before, but it's also kind of like naive of her to think that this gay family is just going to get along great with everyone else at this church. Like, she thinks that they're going to be accepting when we know that that's not likely, and these people have to worry about their safety. And it's also like a little bit of shame and judgment is coming out of her mouth, even though she's saying she's not wanting to judge them. I feel like she doesn't know the right words to say yet. She's actively thinking about it and processing it as she's speaking, and I think she is going to continue to change her views. It might take a long time, and like I said, I don't know if I'm ever going to see her, at the Pride Parade, but something is happening. At least she's saying you should be nice to gay people, but that bar is extremely low, and in the very video that I pulled this clip from, she was saying weird stuff about trans people. So I ultimately think Bethy doesn't know what she even thinks about things yet. I think what we just watched was her realizing her thoughts about the subject right then and there. I think that was done in one take, and I'm shocked that Kristen let her keep it in there.
And so I'm not going to shy away from that, and I'm not going to like try to hide what I believe, just like they're not hiding what they believe. But at the end of the day, we operate and live in a world where we do have difference of opinion, where everyone's not the same. And so I think as Christians, we have to also ask ourselves, how are we going to live in the world and show love to other people, show grace, show kindness?
Last thing I want to talk about, and it's so new that is already gone. This is already gone. Okay. So this month, November, Bethy returned to Instagram with a new era. This page was called She is Feminine, because she does that a lot. She works smart, she is feminine, which appeared to be, for lack of a better word, AI-generated white supremacist dog whistle propaganda. How did she even learn to make AI art? Like, did Dave teach her? Or did she just use up all of her monthly credits on Canva? Like, why is this happening? It's not illegal to be white, but like, it's whatever this is feels wrong. It feels like I'm gonna be on a list viewing this content. Cause like, what is this? Worth fighting for? That's a dog whistle that your grandpa would have used. Like, teachers when I was a kid. I hope everyone had a good recess. It's time for math. Teachers now. Whiteness is a privilege. Now who is ready to hear about my sexuality? Bethy, like, why are you sharing 4chan memes? Like, what happened? And why? Like, is she longing for that lifestyle? Like, and let me just tell you this, it's probably extremely easy for someone like her to go down the trad wife pipeline, because I can't go literally one reel on Instagram without running into more trad wives. They're all over my feed. And yeah, of course they intersect with the QAnoners and the preppers. It's like right in the middle. It's like the girl prepper. But I didn't know she was doing this. Has she been showing an interest? Has she been like talking on Girl Defined or like on her personal page? I don't know where this came from. I assume she's just been scrolling on Instagram all day and found herself in this community. Like, why else would it be? Because this is specifically trad wife. This is like old school conservative values. And she was posting some of this shit on Girl Defined. She would like repost from the She Is Feminine to Girl Defined. And I know it's her because it says she's following the same accounts. And it literally in the link in bio section of the bio, it goes to girldefined.com. You're doing the Lord's work over there on Reddit, because like this stuff is archived the second it's posted, and I'm very thankful for that, because I'm not even shitting you. I wrote in the script that I was going to open up this Instagram page and just go to every single post and like kind of talk about it. I would screen record and live react to each post to be thorough. I sure wish I could do that now. The thing that really made her, I think, delete this. So somebody found out that Bethy used a real picture of their real grandparents for her weird propaganda. And so it's also like, Bethy, stock photos, come on. And you can write that shit off. Go get a subscription to stock photos or use pictures of your real grandparents. Huh, I wonder why she wouldn't want to use a picture of her real grandparents for this. But anyway, she said, fuck it, I'm going to use somebody else's picture. And so this user is talking about their grandparents very lovingly. They have a really sweet story. Like really sad, like they're talking about them dying, and it makes me sad because makes me miss my grandma. This person's mom reached out to Bethy and asked for her to remove the pictures of her family members. And Bethy said, no problem, which this user's mom said is not an apology, and she's right. And then Bethy deleted the entire account. Maybe Bethy felt really shitty for that. Maybe she felt embarrassed, called out, like maybe shameful. Maybe Dave told her to take that shit down. Either way, she took down the whole page. And on one hand, that's a good thing, because this type of content is harmful and it does lead to people going down pipelines that will severely ruin their lives. And so I'm glad it's down. I wish it had stayed up one more day so I could have got some screenshots. I'm glad it's down. You can't take a picture of somebody else's grandparents and use it in that way. Don't use it in any way unless you're doing a cutest grandparents compilation. And even then you should get permission. Also, Kristen does seem to be going through some changes in opinion, although definitely not to the same degree as Bethy. But I recently came across this clip, and it's from 5 days ago, where Kristen is talking about the pitfalls, ditches, as Bethy and Kristen would say, of being so obsessed with modesty that you end up kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Because she was so obsessed with modesty that it almost cost her a friendship.
Like, I cringe when I think back on my thinking around this. So there was this really sweet couple that lived in our city. I think I've told you about this before. And they were, we were friends with them, but just a little more casually. And my husband, Zach, was like, hey, we should have this couple over for dinner. And I remember thinking in my head immediately like, oh, but the wife doesn't dress very modestly. And like, if I have her over, she's probably going to wear something immodest. And then the whole dinner, we're just going to be sitting across from them. And it's going to be awkward. And, you know, my husband, like, how's that going to work with him? He'll probably be struggling, you know, to not look at her the whole time, but we're going to be, you know, we're going to have them at our house. And I just remember thinking like, it's probably not a good idea. And I even told Zach that, like, I just don't feel comfortable. And he was pushing back against it. He was like, but they're our friends. Like, we should show kindness to them. Like, we should have them over. And I was just in a place in my heart of, like, you had talked about managing men's morality, where I was doing that early on in my marriage, struggling with being in situations where there were immodest women around, whatever that was for me at the time, that standard of immodesty.
Don't know what to think, honestly. I had a conclusion that went similar, but then this happened. The thing that I can't get out of my head, in the same exact video where she says she is trying to make friends with her gay neighbors and take them to church.
What would Jesus do when we're actually in these relationships? And my hope with these friends of mine is to just show them the love of Christ.
She nods in agreement to her sister saying that transgenderism is a contagion. I cannot make it make sense in my head.
Kind of
the contagion.
The contagion, that's it. It's like a contagion of young girls influencing other young girls to basically think like, well, maybe I'm also transgender. And it's like spreading throughout schools, spreading throughout all of these like middle school age.
On the Girl Defined Instagram page, they have recently, as of this year, posted things that seem to be in favor of tolerance to gay people at the very least, saying that we should be nice to them and respect their humanity, which is, by the way, the bare minimum and not enough. So it's really disappointing to hear the contagion crap from Bethy. Then Bethy turned around in the same video and go, well, I know some gay people and I want to bring them to church.
Plan to invite them to church as our relationship develops, because I think my church is amazing and I think the people would come around and just love so much. And I hope to be a reflection of Christ that is, not looking down like I'm so much better, but really like at the foot of the cross, we all need Jesus and we all have different areas that we are struggling in or have to repent of.
On second thought, that sounds an awful lot like the same kind of crap that people say about queer Christians in general. It is a sin, but it's not like it's any worse than any other sin, and we all have things that we have to overcome. And I mean, Paul was saying this shit in the 24 Hours With video. We've heard this. That's really disappointing of a take, Bethy. I understand that you're trying and that this is probably the most progressive you've ever been in your life, and it's probably terrifying. But come on, you really think that's true friendship and kindness? Because that's really judgmental. You know how you can show true friendship and Christ-like love? Extending that grace and empathy and kindness and love to trans people. And better yet, you can show them your love through changing. I'd really like to know who Bethy voted for this most recent election, because you definitely cannot love your neighbor when you are actively voting against their interests. It's obvious Bethy is going through something. It's really important that Bethy sit down and think about these things and talk to people in her real life about it and not try to just do it publicly, because it's going to have the unintended consequence of people influencing her, whether it be Christians breathing down her neck, or she's got a lot of voices telling her what to do, and she needs to figure out which ones to actually listen to. She needs to deconstruct. She needs to think about this shit, and she needs to not do it online, because she's not done yet. She's still cooking. So it seems like a little rushed to have her come out and be like, I'm totally changed, and it's been like a month. So what happened? Like, did she get scared confronting all that stuff? Was the peer pressure from her church and her family too much? Is she, still in a space where it's not safe to be a progressive? I don't know what happened, and we'll never know. Maybe one day she'll tell us, but right now I have no clue what the hell is going on. I don't know what Dave's going to do. I don't know what Bethy's going to do. I don't know what she's thinking. I don't know what I'm supposed to think. It's confusing sometimes.
Well, what do we do with that information?
What do you do with any information? You just stuff it deep down inside and keep an eye on it.
You keep it.
For me, this has never been a question of, is Bethy deconstructing? Is she changing? Because she absolutely is. She's on her own timeline, and we still don't know what she's going to end up doing. She might be totally woke someday, or she might be Christian with like 10% less conservative views. We don't know. We don't know, Bethy. I want her to change. I want her to become super liberal, like that would be amazing. I would love for her to apologize. I would love for her to try and correct some of this bad stuff that she's put online. I would love for her to make friends that are different than her and to totally be curious and non-judgmental and just have that awesome life. But I don't know. I don't have control over that. And so it is stressful and confusing, and I don't really know. That's why I think she should stick to herself, and I think she should stay offline and think about this stuff, because clearly this is not working out. Like, I think she thinks about stuff for the first time while she's being recorded. And look where that ended up. And I am so confused. And I do believe in her, but we have to remember that she is currently saying stuff that is harmful, like right now, like last week. So it's just like, if she's offline, then she can't hurt anybody. And so while that's still a possibility of hurting people, I think she should stay offline. All right. That was the episode. This episode was kind of fun to put together because, like, I kind of knew what clips I was going to use ahead of time. It's just taken a long time to get to this point, and just been doing a lot of reflecting. Watching Bethy reflect makes me reflect, makes me wonder how I feel about certain things and how I want to move forward and what I want to cover and how I want to cover it and what are my ethics and everything. It just makes you think, you know. Girl defined. Really makes you think. Not something I thought I would ever say. But yeah, how do you guys feel? And we can't do it without you guys. Not just your, like, support, like, emotionally, just, like, being nice and talking to us, but everything you do for us, like, being there for us financially and, like, just continuing to support us and loving us. And, like, people come up to me and I remember every single person I've ever met. Like, you guys mean so much to me, and it always makes my day, and I just love hearing you guys tell your stories and trying to help you, or just trying to be funny to give you, like, relief. I don't know. Love you guys. We have merch, all kinds of good stuff, including Overweight Sexually Broken Loser by Lauren Marvell, and that is a design that is loosely based on some girl-defined philosophies. We also have, for the Halloween times, fall times, I guess it could be all year round, we have Fungi Fridays by Max Holler, as well as Pronouns Are Child of God by Gweepers. We have some other designs that James and I made that I don't like as much, but they're on the website. You can get that at fundyfridays.shop or search for Fourth Wall. Fundy Fridays should be on there. We also have a bonfire page, which is a bunch of old designs, and they just sit there and collect money for charity. So if you want to do that, that's also fine. I also have links to other things like that in my info box. Of Patreon and YouTube memberships. They do the exact same thing. Both tiers do the exact same thing. One's just cheaper if that's what you want to do. They get you access to the Discord, special emojis in the chat if you're a YouTube member. We do watch parties every Monday. We do live streams for just patrons every now and then. We have a couple of, like, behind the scenes, like, fun videos, including when I made Kanakut coffee cake. Camera died, and so I didn't get to really say goodbye, but I love you guys. You mean the freaking world to me, and I love you so much. I can't even begin to describe how much I love you, and I will see you soon. Follow me on social media. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and consensually smash that like and subscribe button. Bye!